All right, I will call the regular meeting of the Everett City Council to order. It's Tuesday, December 20th, 2022. Time is 6:30. Everybody please rise for a moment of silence while I pledge allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item's consent agenda. We have item A is financial report for November 2022. I'll entertain a motion, then we can.
I make the motion to approve financial report November 2022.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Just want to provide the caveat that Susan is currently in Norway, so I'll do my best to answer any questions that you may have regarding these financial reports.
On the financial transparency, that hasn't been updated since May. Is that correct?
Yes, but that's not, I don't think we can talk about the financial transparency report online because it's not a part of the consent agenda. But yes, that's due to OpenGov implementation and there's still not being the connection yet there.
Okay, so during financial reports, what is it that we can discuss?
The normal monthly financial reports that Susan sends out. The financial transparency reports, if there's a question about the financial transparency reports, we can certainly address those one-on-one. We're happy to do that, but for it to be discussed during the meeting, it would have to be on the agenda. Okay. And so the transparency reports online are not included with the monthly financial reports that our finance director submits. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
Perfect.
Do anybody have any questions on the November 2022 financial reports? Seeing none, would you poll the council?
Place 1.
Aye.
Place 2.
Aye.
Place 3.
Aye.
Place 5.
Aye.
Mayor.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Let's see, presentations, we have none. Item 6 is Susan's comments. Nothing. Okay. Item 7, discussion items. Item A, staff update, consolidated dispatch and jail services.
So we wanted to provide an update as we are getting down to the wire as far as the timeline goes on Go Live. As y'all know, we've been working on this project for well over a year and a half. Mansfield Jail has already begun moving the majority of their items over to our facility. And so they're going to begin operating out of our facility on Wednesday of this week. There was an oversight on my part where we do not have an agreement in place, an official agreement in place between Everman and Mansfield. So the city attorney's office is working on drafting that agreement, which will be retroactive. All of it has kind of been a verbal agreement and of course briefings to both councils. So everybody's aware, but there really needs to be a formal agreement in place. We did get that initial draft today. Mansfield's currently reviewing that. As long as they're good with it, then we'll probably bring that back to you at the next council meeting for final adoption with a retroactive date of this Wednesday, which is December the 21st. Everything is going very smoothly there. The expectation is that Mansfield will fully operate our jail. They will fully manage all of the inmates that are coming in and fully cover all expenditures associated with the maintenance of those inmates. So food, medications, treatments, transports, all that stuff is covered 100% by their current operations. They're covering that within their normal operating budget, essentially. The only thing that we're providing is the space. As a part of us providing that space, they have agreed to provide that same care for any arrestees that we have here in Everman. It's a great thing for us because it tremendously releases a significant amount of liability as we don't have jailers on staff to monitor our inmates and they don't have somebody always tending to them. They have dispatchers that are always watching. And we have to really keep a close eye. Our dispatchers are not trained jailers. These jailers are trained and certified jailers through the state of Texas. So it's just a much better operation all the way around. It's very much a win-win. They're going to operate out of our facility for approximately 18 months. It's a construction project, so It could be up to 24 months, if not longer. There's always delays with construction, as we know. So we could anticipate delays, so it may be longer than 18 months. But roughly somewhere in that ballpark, we can expect Mansfield to pull out, which gives us about 18 months to figure out how we're going to proceed. Do we go back to the same way we were doing these before, or do we change our operation and look at consolidating dispatch? Consolidating our jail with a couple of other cities to provide the same type of service at no negative financial impact. There's a lot of options we can look at as we go forward, but everything's going well on the jail front. On the dispatch front, we are going live with the Tarrant County Fire Alarm Dispatch next Wednesday, December the 28th. This has been a very, very big undertaking. We have the agreements in place with Tarrant County Fire Alarm. One of the things that we have been trying to work out is how do we appropriately take over the contracts that the other municipalities have had with Fire Alarm? Do we enter into new agreements, or do we take over their existing contracts? And then how do we get the finances moved from Fire Alarm to the city of Everman so that we can pay the employees that we're about to onboard and bring on with us? So we've been working with the city attorney's office. We have now gotten copies of almost all of the contracts. I think there's one still outstanding, and the city attorney's office is drafting a document that allows us to essentially assume those contracts. It will have to be passed by our city council as well as the other municipalities that are participating and involved. But once that's complete, then Fire Alarm can transfer the funds to us, allowing us to complete the remaining portion of those contracts. We'll look at the beginning of next fiscal year to execute completely new ILAs directly with those cities involved, where Fire Alarm won't be involved at all anymore. We have 7 full-time employees that are going to be transferring from Tarrant County Fire Alarm over to being City of Everman employees. That will be operating out of our dispatch center. That means that we'll have 1 full-time vacancy with that transition. Now, to go from Fire Alarm to Forest Hill, because there's so many things happening with this dispatch project, we are about to bring before you tonight the ILA between us and the city of Forest Hill for the consolidated dispatch service. This is a part of that project. We would be providing both fire dispatch service, which Fire Alarm portion of it will be set up for and handle, as well as police dispatching services. In addition to that, another agreement that will come when we look to execute the Mansfield agreement will be an agreement that includes jail services, and that'll be a tri-city agreement for Forest Hill, Everman, and Mansfield. If council approves the interlocal agreement that's next on the agenda tonight, we will then invoice the city of Forest Hill for the agreed amount of the roughly $435,000. I think there's some change in there as well. I'm sorry, the pro rata of that $435,000, so that we can go ahead and start hiring some employees and getting them onboarded and trained. And we'll target a go live for Forest Hill Dispatch around January the 18th is what we're shooting for, as long as all the technology goes the way it needs to go to make that happen. So with this, we're going to bring forward some staffing changes. Beverly, my recommendation is going to be that y'all approve Beverly as the Director of Communications. We've already authorized a separate department when we did the budget. So she now has her own budget to work with. I'd like to appoint her as the Director of Communications that will oversee the entire operation. Altogether, she will have roughly 15 full-time employees underneath her and several part-time employees. We would look to have 1 or 2 supervisor level employees below her to help her manage everything, scheduling and so forth. As a part of this agreement, there will be a Fire Chiefs Advisory Board and a Police Chiefs Advisory Board that Beverly would be directly communicating with, and then taking the feedback from those chiefs and making sure that we're implementing that within our communication center, and that dispatch is going the way that all the entities would like for it to be going.
Okay, so under Beverly, you said 15 employees?
Yes.
Okay.
The 7 you talked about, that's strictly from Tarrant County Fire Alarm.
Yes, Tarrant County Fire Alarm has 8 full-time employees, correct? Has 8, only 7 are coming. Correct. So 7 of them are transitioning over. 1 is not making the transition. He's taking employment somewhere else.
Have we budgeted for this?
So as a part of this whole agreement, yes, there will be budget amendments that will have to come forward, some pretty significant budget amendments with this change, because we're talking about increasing our revenue by $700,000 to be able to make these changes. So we're going to have some pretty drastic budget amendments mid-year that will reflect all these changes. I can tell you that Susan and I have worked through the numbers, and we can achieve this without having any negative fiscal impact out of our normal operating budget. So we're not spending any extra money to make this project a success. The whole driving factor behind all this, the first year is going to kind of be a wash. Just because of all the implementation costs that go along with something like this. The driving force behind this is that by consolidating dispatch centers, it should lower the cost of operations across the board for all the municipalities. We're paying for the same infrastructure, whether we have one dispatcher or whether we have 7. Forest Hill is doing the same thing. The radio infrastructure alone is about $45,000 a year. We're paying for that in Everman. Forest Hill is paying for that exact same thing in Forest Hill. By bringing it to one location, now we're splitting that $45,000 between the 2 municipalities, saving money. You take that same principle and you apply it to Forest Hill, White Settlement, Azle, all the various fire departments. It should dramatically start to lower our cost of operations for dispatch, making it much more affordable and or allowing us to increase our service capability to the citizens that we serve.
On, when you were talking about Mansfield, is Mansfield going to, even though it's temporary, is that going to be part of this dispatch service that you're talking about, the 911 communications?
No, so that'll be a completely separate agreement that I'm hoping, if the timeline meets up, we'll actually have back to you before the next council meeting. I'd like to get that agreement in place as quickly as possible. It's just going to depend on the timeline of Mansfield's review. Forest Hill and Everman, we share the same attorney's office, so we're good with it on our side. As long as Mansfield's good on their side, then we'll bring that back to you before the next council meeting for your consideration to approve.
Okay, and Everman will staff their employees and Forest Hill will staff theirs?
No, so we will absorb any employees that are existing over there. I don't think Forest Hill has any dispatchers on staff right now. They've all moved on, and because of this, it's been a struggle for them to try to really recruit some other dispatchers to come in. So they would no longer employ any dispatchers directly. They would be compensating us for the services that we would provide, and then it would be our responsibility to employ those dispatchers to provide that service.
Any dispatchers are on a shift?
Going to be long-term plan is we'll have 2 police dispatchers and 2 fire dispatchers on at any given time, with the ability to expand to up to 7 dispatchers in there at once for special events, holidays, any busy times, major incidents, those sorts of things. We're getting pretty close to the point where we'd like to start providing some tours. We're getting things cleaned up and finalized. We just didn't want to show you a half-built project, but we're getting very close to that project being complete. I know that Forest Hill City Council members are curious to come down here and see what we've done. And I think, I know the mayor's been inside. I would love for you to take the opportunity to come by and see what's been done over there. I think you'll be very impressed with the changes that have happened in the facility and the type of equipment and technology that we have in there for our dispatchers now.
How many 911 callers are going to be in the same?
So our operations, we don't divide up call takers from dispatchers.
Okay.
So all of our dispatchers do both roles.
Okay.
So there will be 2 that will primarily answer Forest Hill and Everman PSAP lines, the primary lines, and there will be 2 dispatchers that primarily answer the Tarrant County Fire Alarm PSAP lines. Those dispatchers will be cross-trained to help supplement the operations of each other. So if for whatever reason we have a shooting that occurs in the city, the police dispatcher is not overwhelmed, there will be other dispatchers there ready to provide that support and answering those phone calls or making the notifications that need to go out. Same thing on the fire side. We get a major structure fire and the fire dispatchers start to become overwhelmed. The police dispatchers will be able to step up and help provide that support to them. That's something we don't have today. Today in Forest Hill and in Everman, if we get a shooting or we get a major structure fire, it's one dispatcher. There's nobody coming to help. They don't have that support. So they have to truly handle all of it. And there's been many times where it's hindered operations, and it's even provided some officer and firefighter safety concerns as we work through these things. So this will be a tremendous improvement in our operations, both improving our services as well as improving the safety of our first responders that are out there. Another just a little feather in the cap to kind of add to this is with fire alarm moving in, the fire dispatchers will be EMD certified. That means that they're actually going to be putting all EMS calls through EMS protocol through a computer system, and then providing over the phone direction to those callers for things like CPR, any sort of medical treatment. That will be very beneficial to us in the aspect of our ISO rating. So ISO looks at that. They review our pro QAs, they review our response times, and that'll contribute several points to our ISO that could lower our ISO rating, ultimately lowering our insurance rates for the residents here in the city, not just in Everman, but also in Forest Hill and any other city that we serve. They're gonna be able to get those points because we're operating in that fashion.
Does Forest Hill have EMS?
Forest Hill contracts with MedStar, but their fire department does provide the first response to all EMS calls. But they do not operate their own ambulance.
So a call will come in here and it'll be dispatched to the EMS in Forest Hill?
Yes. Yeah. So if it's a Forest Hill EMS call, our call takers would take that call. They're able to, with the system we have, they're able to get MedStar call takers on the line at the same time. So it's not like the caller's having to explain it to one dispatcher and explain it to another. All these dispatch centers can join that same call. If it's something that involves a police response, they can even include a police dispatcher on that call. So they're all hearing the same thing at the same time, and all these units are being dispatched simultaneously. Our dispatch center would be responsible for dispatching Forest Hill Fire Department as the first responders. MedStar Dispatch would take care of dispatching the MedStar ambulance on that call.
So with all this going forward with the no assistance being toward the other side of Forest Hill Drive, when will they start working on that for the calls that go to Kennedale?
So that's part of the next gen 911. And that is associated with this in the aspect of Tarrant County 911 is pushing for consolidated dispatches in Tarrant County. Agencies essentially in the next few years that can't find a way to consolidate because of cost and the extreme cost on the infrastructure at these centers are going to be forced to consolidate or forced to supplement those costs that Tarrant County 911 is going to absorb. So this is beneficial to us in the aspect of we're doing that at the request of Tarrant County 911. We are consolidating to provide that support so that they can afford the next gen upgrades. We have several town hall meetings coming up, several studies that are still being completed on the next gen 911 technology. And I think they're planning to roll it out. Mayor can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's roughly 2024 is the timeline that they're looking to roll out.
Yeah, I think
Next
they have
gen?
to have something in place by 2025, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
But
Right.
Yeah.
So I think the timeline is roughly 2024 is when next gen 911 will start being implemented. The next gen 911 will fix those issues that we've talked about, where if you're on the border of a city and you call 911, you may get connected to somebody completely different. I know that in the Flowers edition, if you call 911, 9 times out of 10, you get connected to a Mansfield dispatcher, even though you're in Everman. And it's all because it's not utilizing the most up-to-date technology, and Tarrant County is being forced to update that technology. The problem and the reason why it hasn't been updated yet is because it's roughly a $42 million project or something or there's a $42 million
they don't have a set
deficit.
number yet. So,
Okay.
Because they're still trying to decide how much of it we have to do first, and,
Right.
take pieces of it that we have to do and do them and if anything else, but, may not do the whole package. So,
Right.
This
is also a big step for us as far as, I hate to call it a business venture, but it is essentially, it's an enterprise venture, right? I mean, we're going to be offering a service that we wouldn't normally be able to operate or we're going to be offering a service that we wouldn't normally be able to offer without these opportunities. not with the goal of necessarily making money, but with a goal of reducing our expenditures, right? And being very frugal with the tax dollars that we have, which allows us to allocate those funds elsewhere. This will open up a door for us to be able to offer those services to other municipalities that may be looking for a dispatch center that would provide those affordable services for police and fire. So it really opens up the door for us to be able to do that. Smaller agencies are going to be, the fact is, they're going to be pushed to consolidate in some form or fashion because the funding is just not going to be there to support 32 different dispatch centers in Tarrant County.
So with next gen 911 also, our costs are going to go up, but it's just going to be a fraction if we have all these other entities. We're only paying a portion of that. I mean, we are going to see costs going up as far as the city of Everman goes. But at least split it instead of us paying for it all 100%. So
Correct.
I got corrected on that by the ladies doing the study. So when I brought up they would save everybody money, she said, no, it won't be saving you money, but technically it does if you're splitting the costs, but your costs are going to go up.
As far as insurance, Everman and Forest Hill will have their own insurance because here it says Everman agrees to and accepts full responsibility for the acts, negligence, and or omissions of all employees and agents in connection with the performances of service. And then it says Forest Hill does as well.
Which section of the agreement are you looking at?
Article 1.2.
Next agenda item.
I mean,
Oh, okay.
am I supposed to wait?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get to that one next, but yes, we can answer that question.
Greg, you have anything else on consolidation of dispatch and jail services?
Just pray for us for the next couple of weeks. It's going to be a roller coaster, and I want to make sure that we're very clear. We are expecting things to go wrong, and there will be issues, but we're ready to address those when they come up. We have been working very hard to prepare for this as we look to go live next week with Fire Alarm, and we're excited about it. A lot of the agencies are excited about it. We're looking forward to it, but it will be a very challenging time for us to get this up and operational. It's a big move. It's a heavy lift. There are 8 primary dispatch agencies that we are taking on all at once. So we're going to be dispatching for, White Settlement, Azle, Forest Hill Fire, Everman Fire, Rendon Fire, Eagle Mountain, Briar Reno, Edgecliff Village, all these agencies. We, at the flip of a switch, we're now responsible for providing those dispatch services for. So
For Beverly.
just pray for us over the next week as we look to get this launched. But we're excited and we're ready. We've done a lot of work to be prepared for this switch, and we're ready to make it happen.
Well, this would happen wherever it went. So
Yes.
it's just the nature of the beast once again. So
Yes.
Any other questions on dispatch or jail service? Okay, so let's move down to consideration possible action. Item A. Interlocal agreement for Everman Emergency 911 Communication Center and Dispatch Services agreement is entered into by and between the city of Everman, Texas, a home rule municipality, Everman, and the city of Forest Hill, Texas, a home rule municipality, Forest Hill, by and authorizing city manager Craig Spencer to execute said agreement. So I will entertain a motion.
Make the motion to approve the interlocal agreement for emergency 911 communication center and dispatch services between the city of Everman and city of Forest Hill as read.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Now, any questions?
Okay.
Johnny, you want to go back to the question you asked? And
On Article 1.2. Sorry, 1.3. Where it was talking about Everman accepts full responsibility of acts, negligence, and or omissions for Everman employees and agents in connection with the performance of services. And then it also says Forest Hill does their employees.
Yes, please.
First, I want to start off by saying Everman and Forest Hill are both governmental entities, and they both have a lot of governmental immunities. So these provisions are really just to clarify that neither party is waiving their governmental immunity, and neither party is accepting responsibility for the acts of the other. Each entity is still responsible for any acts that it undertakes, and that's repeated again later in the, I think, in the indemnifications. Yeah, in Article 5. So in other words, you know, if Forest Hill doesn't respond, you know, then Everman is not going to be responsible for Forest Hill's action. We've done what we're supposed to do under the agreement. That's why that's in there, just to clarify and make sure everybody understands, you know, that this isn't any sort of joint venture. We're not going to be responsible for Forest Hill's actions. We're responsible for our acts.
Mayor, if I can add one clarification item onto this agenda item, I just want to be clear on section 4.1, I believe in the agenda packet, the section 4.1 where it identifies the dollar amount associated with this ILA. The agenda packet still had the blank in it. The dollar amount for this interlocal agreement is $435,627.50. Forest Hill has already approved on their end this interlocal agreement. That dollar amount was a dollar amount that we proposed to them to provide this service after considering cost of employees, benefits for those employees, operational cost, and fair share cost for all of the infrastructure and equipment required, as well as the initial implementation. I do want to be clear, one of the things that we've asked both the city manager from Forest Hill and I have asked the city attorney to look at was to make sure that we had the ability, particularly after the first year, to really renegotiate that. Because the first year is truly a guess. We are making an educated guess on what our cost is. It may come in very under that or way under that. It may come in slightly over that. I don't think we're going to be overshooting. Anytime we try to propose numbers, we are very conservative in those numbers. I would anticipate the number will actually come in less than that. Therefore, when we go to renew this agreement next year, we may look at reducing that amount that we're asking Forest Hill to contribute. But I just wanted to be clear up front this year when we approve this ILA for the first year that this number may very well change after the first year, and that we are only proposing that dollar amount to the city of Forest Hill based off of conservative budgeting and trying to predict what's going to happen over the next year without ever operating a combined dispatch center before. So
How many dispatch positions are they covering?
4. They will.
They're covering 4?
Yes, they will cover 4 full-time positions.
Might I suggest them going through and spell checking some of the words in here and making sure the numbering is correct.
Are you seeing one that's off that we can point out real quick?
On Article 5.2, graphical errors.
By entering into this agreement. Where's ENTEMNG?
And claiming against anything.
Did you say Forest Hill's already executed?
Yes, Forest Hill's already executed. Would those,
Those would just be typographical, as long as they don't throw I think they won't throw the signature page off, so you can correct those.
okay. And it's not changing the spirit of the interlocal at all or anything, so we can make those edits, Councilwoman.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, would you poll the council?
Place 1,
Aye.
place 2,
Aye.
place 3,
Aye.
place 5,
Aye.
Mayor,
Aye.
motion carried.
Next item is executive session. Item A, section 551.071, contemplated litigation, Stephen Advief. The time is 7 o'clock and we're going into executive session.
One here or?
We can go to my office.
Okay.
Ready? Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order. The time is 7:19. No action was taken. Next item, the city manager's report.
The only thing I have is just to let you know that we are still working on the roof. Originally, it was a planned 3-day project. Unfortunately, that has progressed into a week and a half long project. There have been many issues identified along the way. Therefore, we are being forced to close City Hall tomorrow. Our staff will be working remotely. Those that aren't housed in City Hall will still be at work. So it's not a holiday of any sort. Everybody will be working remotely, just like we have been last week and like we did during COVID. So we'll still be responsive to citizens' requests, available by phone, taking payments over the phone, all that kind of stuff like we normally would. It's just the physical location will have to be closed. The heaters are still shut down, as I'm sure you've noticed during this meeting, and they will be adding the tar and glue on the roof. And the odor of that is really obnoxious and probably hazardous to our staff. So it's best that we go ahead and close for tomorrow, just for everybody's safety in mind. We are expecting the roof to be complete by Thursday. And I hope that's the case, considering we've got some harsh
Thursday,
tips.
what week?
This week, man. Also, our staff, fire, police, public works, everybody is preparing for the upcoming temperatures. We've been checking our generators and everything to make sure that we're prepared just in case we have any sort of power loss. I think that's our biggest concern, is any condensation in the air that may get on power lines or transformers and cause any sort of prolonged power loss. That's always our big concern. We're not too concerned about roadways. There's not any heavy precipitation expected, but we are preparing for the temperatures just in case. If we do suffer any sort of prolonged power loss, we will look to stand up our civic center as a warming center for our residents if needed, that people can come to get warm if we have any prolonged power loss that comes into effect. But we're not going to open it unless we have anything that
Is
happens.
City Hall closed Friday and Monday?
City Hall will be closed Friday and Monday for the Christmas holiday, yes. And we will be closed on Monday the 1st as well. I'm sorry, 2nd. Monday the 2nd in observance of New Year's Day. So other than that, I don't have anything else, Mayor.
All right, mayor's report. I don't have anything. So is 7:22. We are